You're listening to Impulse to Innovation. The Institution of Mechanical Engineers podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Helen Mees. As a global community of mechanical engineers with over 120,000 members in 140 countries, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers has been at the heart of the engineering profession since 1847. The institution's mission is to improve the world through engineering by sharing the latest news, views and insight into the creative world of technology and the people that make it happen. In 2023, EngineeringUK commissioned a report focusing on the demand for engineers and the skills they would need in the coming decade. The report identified that there were approximately 6.1 million engineering jobs, including tech roles, across all industries in 2021, representing around 19% of all jobs in the UK. 43% of those jobs were in ICT or software-related areas. At the same time, the report found that between 2022 and 2023, recruitment activities for engineering roles accounted for a quarter of all job postings in the UK, suggesting that the skills shortage in engineering is greater than in any other area. With the engineering industry becoming increasingly competitive, it's not surprising that many companies in the sector are fighting to find and hold on to the right people. The issue of talent retention is growing in importance, with many businesses looking at how they can invest in their employees for the long term. I invited a number of engineers, recruiters and HR experts from across industry and business to share their thoughts on the challenges facing the engineering sector in maintaining its workforce. They are Lauren Henwood, Business Manager and Head of Technology and Engineering Europe for Vantage Consulting. Laura Marston, Recruitment Specialist, Author and Trustee of Young Tongues Cancer Charity. Rob Armstrong, Vice President Mechanical Engineering at Leonardo. And Bims Adelayi, IMechE HR Director. I started by asking Bims, Rob and Lauren, what are the challenges of retaining talent in the engineering sector, and why is retaining top talent more difficult than ever for engineering companies?
It's a really good question. And I think it doesn't just start in the now. I think if you go back, that talent challenge has really started since we, this is not a political statement or anything, but Brexit obviously caused some challenges for us. There was a great influx of people before, and a lot of people have left. And similarly, the pandemic meant that a lot of people reassessed what they wanted to be. They wanted to be closer to families. And so we've seen a great drain of talent in particular industries. And I think not just people that maybe have come from abroad, but people that want to be abroad. So I think there's a range of factors. There's also the sort of economic factors that have affected all kinds of geographical areas. And things like brand visibility. At the end of the day, people want to work for a brand, and a lot of that's generated by social media and the visibility and stability of companies. But equally, I think a lot of people are looking for different things in companies than perhaps just a salary. They're looking for values, ethics, sustainability. There's a lot of talk about people, being pernickety about the kind of jobs, but there are real different drivers now in today's world, and that has evolved, as we can see.
I think some of the things that we find are the amount of choice that's available for our people. It's a very competitive environment. So both in our own industry and beyond, there are so many opportunities out there for people. I think it's a market for employees to go out and look for things that excite them. So we need to be able to provide them those same sort of opportunities internally. I think what we also see is like a shortage of mid-career engineers, which means people might be offered roles that with maybe more responsibility, better salaries, things like that, maybe before they're ready for it. So it can be quite challenging in those terms of being able to keep up with that and offer people those kind of roles.
I think, first of all, what we know is that there is an aging workforce generally. So you're always going to lose talent to that. I mean, it is quite high within the engineering industry as well. So I think it's like 91,000 people are going to retire by 2026, which is like almost 20% of the workforce, isn't it? Which is a lot. So you're always going to lose talent just naturally from that. But what I would say is that competition, because we know there's a shortage of engineers across the UK, there's always going to be people that are trying to like get them into their business. And I think people, they always, which is a good thing, they'll think that, you know, their business is the best one to work for, which I love the enthusiasm there. But there is also other companies that have got more exciting projects or better benefits, or, you know, they've got more growth in their business. So it's always going to be a challenge with competition wise. So I think that people need to be making sure that they're aware of the market and what's going on, not just in their business, but in their competitors, to be able to navigate that.
The last 3 years have forced many employers to rethink what makes a successful workplace. Failure to attract and retain talent ranked 4th on Aon's 2023 Global Risk Management Survey, compared to 2021 when it didn't even make the top 10. So what did our experts think as to why companies fail to retain talent?
When we first talk to a candidate, it will be one of the first questions that we ask them. It's so important that we understand why they're not happy where they are. We've had all the weird and wonderful answers that you can imagine, but there's some main themes. I think lack of career opportunities is a massive one, but I think not always is it because that company can't offer it. I think that sometimes companies have poor communication or ineffective leadership. So therefore they struggle to get the business vision over to the employees. So a lot of the time they're surprised, oh, you're handing a notice in because of this. And it's almost too late at that point, but there probably was the opportunity for them in that company. It's just because they haven't communicated it out.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what we try and give people is exciting work. I think that's one of the things people are looking for is, you know, things that they can really get their teeth into, that will give them some longevity, you know, those kind of exciting programs. And we do offer some of those great programs, you know, things like Tempest. It's great for people to get involved in those things and really build a career around a major program like that. But also you've got that balance in engineering. I think engineering can be difficult, can't it? And it's as much as there's exciting things that we can do, it's not always fun. So it's how do we support people when things get challenging as well, and help them through those times and keep them engaged.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, we know that in the engineering industry, as much as we all come to work for money, like it is natural for people to want to have interesting projects. And if you haven't got those going on, it's a struggle to motivate people to want to keep coming back if they feel like they're doing the same project they did before, or they've never got any variation to their work. I love that about engineers, that they're motivated that way. I think that's really interesting, that they want to come to work and want to challenge themselves and like progress that way.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about, maybe for those that are known as the silent generation and things like that, it might have been, from an apprenticeship to almost to the grave, so to speak. And, they were quite happy with a very solid salary, a very decent pension and those kind of stability factors. But actually, all the generations in the workplace now want much more, and you couldn't even necessarily attribute it to only one generation.
I think a major part of it is listening to your people. One thing that we do is a survey to really understand the employee experience. So we use a tool called Glint, and we at regular intervals ask our employees for their feedback and then try and take action around that. So as people managers, we will build action plans based on that feedback we get. And some of those things that come up are things like having a sense of belonging. We're living in a increasingly remote working environments over the last 3 or 4 years. So being able to find ways, and perhaps different ways, of keeping people connected in their teams, in the wider business is really important. I think also flexibility is really important to people, and if companies can't offer flexible working where people can work around their lifestyle and have that work-life balance, it can be really difficult to retain people. So another thing that we've done is offer more flexible working where teams decide between themselves how they're going to operate, and that there's that understanding that if people need to go and do the school run, or if people need to go and walk the dog, or those kind of things, that we can work around those things. We don't need that kind of rigidity that we might have had traditionally in the workplace. And then one other point is reward and recognition. And I think if we don't really show that value of people, when they do perform well, and reward them appropriately for that, then the chances are that they are going to get demotivated and look elsewhere. So by sort of listening to that feedback and trying to act upon it really helps us to try and to retain people.
Returning to work after an extended period of leave, such as long-term sickness or maternity, can be a daunting prospect for employees. Having the full support of their employer can help to retain a positive working relationship between employer and employee, and also help to preempt any problems such as finding new ways of flexible working. I asked Laura if she would share her personal story of returning to work as a HR manager after having tongue cancer, and what provisions employers should be looking to provide to ensure a smooth transition for their staff.
5 years ago, I was quite an able-bodied person, and then was diagnosed with cancer. But the treatment that was involved, I had surgery and chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and radiotherapy. All of those have side effects that are long-term. So my life, my mobility has been affected, but also I lost my tongue fit, so I now have a speech impediment. And that, going from an able-bodied person one day where I could talk and eat and converse with people with no issues, to literally overnight having to learn to talk again, to learn this. The doctors call it a new normal. It's not a phrase I like, but until I find something I'm comfortable with, I'll go through that. So having to go through all that rehabilitation, the most frightening part was going back to work, because the expectation is that I'm at, before I left, I was at a high level, and suddenly I was a recruiter. I can't talk to people as much as I could before. So I went to a stage return program, and that helped me integrate into work, and for work to understand how I was, so how I spoke, what I needed to be able to do my job. So that's for anyone who is coming back from long-term illness. A stage return to work program is kind of like the baseline, but then also having communication prior to returning. So if it's someone returning off from long-term sick, a long-term absence, then about a month or two before they're coming back to work, they should be able to have conversations with their line manager, start having communications about what's happening in the business now. for people who have never worked before because they're a parent who has been the sole parent at home, then having a phased transition into work, because for them it's a massive culture change. So bring them in again phased into work, but have a buddy with them. So have someone who they're going to work with, who can talk to them, take them for lunch, give that person with a message before work, all that stuff. That's so helpful. And then there's the one-to-ones with the teenager, their line manager, but also HR, so that there's a large scope of people who can understand what we need. Everyone is different. Everyone who goes through any form of trauma, who goes through coming back to work after 20 years out, all need different care. And it's about having that regular one-to-one, that communication, makes everyone from the work side of things understand what the employee wants. And then training. So training is very, very important for not only coming back to work, but for the managers around them. So if someone's coming back with a disability, or someone has just been diagnosed with autism or ADHD or something that they need support with, then the line manager and possibly the team should have some training around that to ensure that they are facing that person in the right way. And team building exercises are very good, but they need to be relevant to the cause. There's no point making something up just to have a team building exercise. Make it relevant to the team and what they're doing, what they're focused on.
Lauren also shared her thoughts on the issues of ensuring employees are fully supported after work breaks.
Yeah, I think it was on I think it was International Women's Day, and I saw something on LinkedIn, scrolling through. It was something like 54,000 women every year are pushed out of work because of inflexibility or childcare costs. I think people are just not really thinking long term. They're more thinking that person isn't of use to me right now, and therefore they don't act necessarily ethically or how we would want them to act. And me myself, obviously, I was ill last year, and when I was off for a couple of months, and when you do come back, you almost do feel like, and not because of anyone else around you, you do feel like a burden. That's how I felt. I felt like I was an inconvenience, and that's more internal of me myself, of thinking I used to contribute all of this, and now I can only do this. And look, I'm not a mother. Hopefully one day I will be. I'd love to be, but I'm imagining that some people might feel that way for that side. I think that empathy will go a long way. You know what I mean? I think that even if you haven't been ill, or you haven't had time off work for a long period of time, or haven't had children, I think just imagining how you would feel in their position, and being able to relate to them as much as possible. I think that communication is a really good thing as well. I know we've already spoke about that earlier, but I think having a safe place to talk without feeling judged, because for me, I work in sales, and having confidence is a big part of my job. And when you haven't done your job for a couple of months, it's only natural for your confidence to go down a bit. So I was always worried about, if I tell them that I'm not as confident, then they then might look down on me. And and again, it's all internal. It's all because I'm worried about what people think of me, and I want to do the best job and deliver the same service to the company as what I was doing, prior to that. But I think it's important for companies to offer flexibility, whether that be part-time hours or a phased return back to work. When I spoke to candidates before, they're like, "Oh, I wanted to go back 4 days, but they can't offer it me, and I can't do full time because childcare costs, or can't get anyone to take care of the baby. And I just think, like, why would you want to lose a member of staff for one day? Wouldn't you rather have them 4 days than not at all? And I understand it isn't as easy as that, and businesses have got things that they need to achieve, but I do think that people can be more flexible, but just aren't willing to think outside the box on how it can work, if that makes sense.
For me, having an accessible workplace is essential for all who work for you. So it's having the ability for all people to have access and navigate and use environments that are in the business. And this includes in physical spaces, so physical items, whether it's computers, laptops, down to the coffee machine, as well as digital spaces. So allowing that to happen, it is good to remember that having an accessible workplace also differs from person to person. Everyone is different. Everyone has their own nuances that makes them them. And so it's not necessarily something that we want to put in a set category. Someone who has autism, the spectrum is massive. So what might work for one person having reduced lighting in the area they work, for someone else who is autistic, that might not work for them. It's also beneficial for business. It can reduce staff turnover because people feel happy coming to work, they feel confident. And studies have also shown that profits can improve by up to 30% because the workforce is working harder and comfortable. They're happy being in the business.
Yeah, definitely. And, it isn't just about the time in or out the business. It's also when you are there, what sort of responsibilities do you have? Do you get all the same responsibilities you had before you went off, but you haven't done it for a chunk of time and you also got less days to do it in? It needs to be like slowly fed back. And I think that's also difficult because companies don't really think about it as much. They're just like, oh, right, they're back now, that's it, and just pass all the work over instead of sitting down and saying, okay, these were the responsibilities you did before. How many do you think you can do straight away and how much over time? And just communicating that and almost coming up with a plan.
As a business owner, creating an inclusive workplace that fosters equity, diversity and belonging can seem quite daunting. However, building a welcoming and supportive environment for all employees is key to attracting and retaining diverse talent and driving long-term growth. Bims shared her views on how companies can ensure that their workplace is inclusive and free from bias and discrimination.
I think we've got to be realistic, and as much as we want to seek for utopia, it's very rarely out there, because we're dealing with individuals and not a machine that you can program to whatever is your needs. But you've got to go right back to the beginning and say, let's fundamentally be honest with ourselves as a company. Let's do that assessment of where we really are, where we think we are, not where we want to be, and all tidying it up and etc. So, you've got to start with your leadership teams, because everyone will always look from the top down. A lot of the time they talk about comms as being top down and across and up. But actually, in things like this, it does have to start from your leadership. Are they leading by example, etc.? So, and then we're going to have to look at things like education and an understanding and acceptance of differences and not tolerating differences. I hate that word tolerance. I think it's a very patronizing word, and you're already putting people in a different subcategory. So actually, it's an acceptance of differences and valuing and working out how to understand how they best work for you.
Laura pointed out that to ensure the workplace remains diverse and inclusive, the business needs to ensure it understands and implements statutory regulations.
So there's so much out there now. There's equality, diversity and inclusive training for everyone. Policies are a good way, and it's about sharing those policies and making sure the policies are relevant to the business and the workforce. So the menopause policy is one that not many companies have at the moment. But it's massive, Women might have go through the menopause, and again, that's something that is different for each person. You should also have things like bullying and harassment policies, and of course, policies, diversity and inclusivity. But then it's about sharing them. So be transparent about your policies. Putting something in the handbook is beneficial, but if you've then got the rest of the policies hidden away in some back book that no one can use, what's the point? So have them in a public area so that all employees can read them as and when they want to. It's also good to be mindful of language that's used. So is it something that to discriminate someone? Is it too masculine? It's good to be aware of what is not okay to use and make those changes. And that would be included in the people's strategy. And it's for those attract and monitors and said openly to the wider business. Get regular feedback from the workforce, so that employee engagements are absolutely wonderful in my opinion. But you have to ask the right questions. There's no point saying, is this a great place to work, if you're not doing anything behind that question to make it a great place to work. And also be critical around the recruitment process. It starts from the hiring managers writing a job description. Is that an inclusive job description? Is it too masculine? Is it too feminine? Or is it a gender neutral terminology used in that job description and in the adverts? And then with the recruitment process and being critical about it, make those improvements, because again, it makes more people want to apply.
Absolutely. I think, it's really interesting that you said that, because I think a lot of the time, large companies can put out really great big PR statements, but fundamentally, when you look behind the statement, there is nothing there. If you look throughout the whole of their whole teams, especially the leadership teams, there isn't any diversity there. And, as the higher you reach the top, the less diverse it is. So actually, and what you want to see is that they're looking at their talent pipeline, not just talking about it and putting some action steps in to address it. It won't happen overnight, but if you start somewhere, then in 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to see people have the confidence that they have a place in the higher echelons of that company.
Yeah, very much so. It's what's the point of having a policy in the business where someone looks in and doesn't see themselves as an employee in the business because of the language that they've used. And so that will then, in turn, make that person want to look elsewhere. We went through a period in the 50s, 60s, 70s of having that job for life. And then the digital wave came along and people bounce from job to job. But businesses are now struggling. And if people are bouncing from job to job because they don't see themselves in that business, they don't see themselves in the policies or the processes, they don't align with those, then that person's going to leave. But then they're having to hire, and that takes time. Then having to train someone up to become as good as the person who left. And that takes a lot of time. That can take a couple of years for your business to get back on track where it was, and of course you can lose money that way. There is EngineeringUK training, so the policy, diversity and inclusivity, and that's so accessible now. Then you can Google that, and you'll come up with many courses. I think there are also some free courses out there. There's also having robust EngineeringUK processes, so practices and people's strategies, but that are also shared to the wider business. So it's no good having the practices if HR are just going to sit on them, let the wider business know. I love it as companies. I use the word hot, so they're honest, open and transparent, so that all departments know what's happening in the business, how it's happening, who's accountable, and how it's being set off. So learning and development is also superb, and that's through one-to-ones and appraisals. And then open about what you don't know. That is absolutely okay to go, I don't understand, I have never experienced, can you help me please? And then you can look out there. There's implementing inclusive hiring practices so that they're hiring the right person for the job and not a carbon copy of the person who left. Setting the company values to improve EDI and celebrating successes openly. So if the entire team has gone through EDI training and they've changed the way the blue person be more inclusive and celebrate that. There are also companies out there who can support for great resources who have APAS and they also have CIPD. So those two companies have the advice and training courses out there that you can utilise for your business, from line manager, employee, up to the board.
When an integral member of your team announces their departure, it can feel like navigating through uncharted waters. Whether they're moving on to a new challenge, retiring, or any other reason, your response as a business can significantly influence the transition period for their team and the incoming replacement. Many companies are now including offboarding processes to ensure employees can move on easily. But why is this important for retaining talent? Lauren has some thoughts on this issue.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the time they've obviously already prepared them for their new opportunity. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have got offered the job anyway, if that makes sense. But I think that it's always about networking. So just because somebody is leaving or joining a new company, you always want to be on good terms because you never know where it's going to take you. You know, it'd be the same from a recruitment. Just because we don't fill that role, we always want to make sure that we have a good relationship for the next time they want to use us or need to use us. And the same with a candidate, you know, even if they don't accept an offer that we've got them, we always want to have a good relationship for the next time that they're looking. So businesses always need to think about their market reputation, because you just never know where things are going to be. You never know what projects is going to come up. You never know where you personally are going to go in your career. And you know, a lot of the time you end up bumping into people. So I think it's really important that they are maintaining good relationships throughout. And if that means preparing people for their next role, then it seems to me like the right thing to do. We will get a role from a company and we'll go out to market with it. And what the market thinks of that can change in 12 months drastically. You know, it could be last year that they were really well thought of in the market. And now, because something had happened, maybe people left that then go around saying bad things about them. It spreads like wildfire. And then all of a sudden you'll get that feedback, oh, I don't want to work for them. Or my friend worked for them, they did this. Or my friend interviewed there, they never gave him feedback. Like, this is why I'm always trying to say to hiring managers, I understand you don't want to interview them or you don't want to offer them, but you need to give feedback of why, because otherwise it can damage what people think of you out there. Our job is obviously to speak to people that are looking, but it's also to headhunt. You know, when we do speak to candidates that aren't looking, as much as we're like, oh, damn it, it's also really good to hear that the company that they're working for is, you know, a good one to work for, because then instantly my mind will switch. Instead of to wanting to pull them out, I'm like, well, I want to work with that company now and place people there because I know it's a good company to work for. So I think it's so lovely when people feel that sort of loyalty, and you can tell that when people are there for longer periods of time instead of, you know, swapping around.
In today's competitive job market, creating a comprehensive and enticing employee benefits package has become vital. These non-wage compensation packages are designed to enhance job satisfaction, overall well-being, and financial security for employees beyond their basic salary. While employee benefit packages play a vital role in enticing the best candidates during the recruitment stage, they're also a crucial component when it comes to retaining existing staff. So what kind of benefits should employers be considering?
Compensation, benefits, there's so much, especially right now because of the cost of living and inflation. You know, we're watching people get really, really big pay rises. a lot of people being underpaid. And then, as I said, like sometimes when it comes to handing their notice in, it's almost too late. I've watched a candidate get a 25 grand pay rise in a day from getting an offer, going back to their employer, them counter-offering them, and then the new employer, potential employer, then counter-offering again. Like, it's rife for it. We see it everywhere, and it isn't actually just about the basic salary. It's so much more of that. You know, we've had a candidate want to leave their current employer because it was 2 days less holiday than what their wife got at their company, and they wanted to mirror their holiday, obviously, to spend it together every year. It's 2 days, and it might not mean a lot for a company, but for one person, it is a lot. They need to look at every part of the package, because there's a lot of people out there that are obviously offering a lot more, and it just entices people away.
We're quite flexible, actually, in terms of how we do our benefits at Leonardo. So we have an award-winning flexible benefit scheme where we actually give people an allowance each year, and then they can spend that how they wish, whether it is on healthcare, or whether it's on gym memberships, or whether it's on buying technology items. So they actually have that kind of freedom to use that how best suits them. We also have sort of other schemes that we use, like green car scheme, where you can get an electric vehicle through salary sacrifice. Obviously, cycle to work is a really big one, and that has benefits both in terms of people being able to get bikes and equipment at a really competitive rate, but also, you know, there's the health benefits around that as well. You know, and encouraging people to get exercise is a good thing to do at the same time. And then also around mentoring as well, we have our own mentoring scheme that's aligned to institutions like the IMechE's MPDS. And whilst people are on those development schemes as developing engineers working towards professional registration, we'll pay their fees, for example, but also we encourage people to do mentoring. So when people are mentoring developing engineers, we pay their fees as well, and I think that's quite a good benefit as well, because you know, that can be quite a significant amount for people. So I think it's a good incentive for people to be mentored and to mentor.
We know that basic salary is the thing that matters the most to people, but I think if there's a lot of travel, a car allowance, or any sort of like actual car given, I think is really incentivize people. I think bonuses, whether that's be individual performance or company-based performance. I've seen companies do like an allowance per year on how much training, like external training they can get, whether that be maybe to get qualified in an extra area. Some people it'd be a whole master's, but then other people it would just be certain, you know, certifications. I think any sort of stuff they can do with equipment as well, in making sure that they've got phones, laptops, the right at-home working environment. I think also any sort of, if there's possible, to have hybrid working, remote working. That is quite big at the moment, especially since COVID. I think people are trying to pull people back in, and maybe people don't want to go in as much as they want to. But I also think, you know, any sort of company gatherings or incentives, you know, like it's so when we do onboard new companies, I always like to hear about what do they do? Do they have a Christmas party or a summer party, and where do they go, and what sort of things do they do? And you know, there's so many companies that are like, oh no, we don't do anything out of work, but then the others are like, oh, we go to do mini golf or go on go-karts or something just sort of fun that is good for team bonding and things like that. I think people underestimate how much that will make people want to stay there. Even if there is a job down the road that's $5,000 more, I know these people and I really get on with them, so therefore the loyalty is more there.
Getting the right talent into your company doesn't just start with a graduate engineer. Ensuring that young people have visibility of your business is just as important. Rob shared his thoughts on why STEM engagement is so important and how that can lead to a lifelong relationship with an employee.
Yeah, I think STEM outreach activities with schools are absolutely essential for keeping that interest in and understanding in what engineering is all about. And at Leonardo, we've been doing that for a long time, and we've really used it to create a pipeline so that we can engage with young people in schools right from things like the work experience that we offer, different challenges like Go for Set, with that kind of thing we've done in the past, but then sort of following them through as they go through education to be able to then do things like, for example, year in industry, summer placements, sandwich placements, and then we tend to use that for quite a large bulk of our early careers recruitment. Is that certainly for graduates, a high proportion of them will have already been engaged with us through that route. And often, on their final summer placement, we will then offer them a graduate position. It's that kind of that long-term interview that you really you get to know them, they get to know you, and then we know what we're getting then, particularly on the graduate side of things. We engage with colleges and universities. We do a competition called Rampaging Chariots. So that's where we give kits to schools to build. It's a bit like Robot Wars that used to be on TV. So they build a kit, they build a robot, and then we have a big competition where all the different teams come to our sites and have a number of challenges, and that really kind of gets them engaged in the engineering design process and having some fun with it as well. And then also we're very much involved with the IMechE Apprentice Automation Challenge. So every year we put teams in, and that's another good opportunity to really engage our early careers people in understanding product design, but not just diving into the engineering, but thinking about how you build a business case, how you move from prototype to mass production, and how all the different engineers work together, work through life cycle management. So there's a whole load of benefits, and also there's that fun element as well, where they get to go to the judging day at the end of it and share their prototypes with the judges and with the other teams, and a bit of competition and friendly fun as well. So we find that's a really good competition for us for engaging early careers people in engineering. It helps to equip them so that they sort of learn those life cycle management processes, for example, in that sort of safe environment. It also really helps to build their network, because they sort of learn who to go and ask for advice. If they need advice about how to lay out a production line, or if they need advice about how to make a product safe, then they start learning who those people are that they can go to. And I think building that network is really important. And again, when we're going back to that point I made earlier about the sense of belonging and being part of the organization, I think that really helps them to bed in those sort of early years of their career. We've actually just recently launched a new internal mobility platform so that employees can upload a profile of what their current experience is, and then they can receive sort of tailored career development opportunities based on internal vacancies we have. So it's that kind of way of, when we have vacancies, we can, as a first port of call, we can look at the talent that we've already got in the business, and so that's good for us in terms of not needing to go out and recruit it externally, but also giving people those internal opportunities. A few other things we do are personal development plans. So we like to ensure, that all people have those plans in place, and that they have a mentor, that they receive coaching, for example, and understand, if they want to get to the next stage in their career, what steps do they need to put in place to do that. So we have a career framework which really clearly sets out what the expectations are in terms of things like the knowledge and experience and skills that people require for any given role, and then they can look at what are the gaps that they have that they need to fill to progress their career. What training might they need, what support might they need, and they can. We talk a lot about career conversations, so about how our people leaders. One of the sort of key points of our people management fundamentals at Leonardo is that we have career conversations with our people, so that we can really help them plan those future moves.
And what about the professional engineering institutions? And what role does continued professional development play in talent retention and attraction in industry? As Director of HR at the IMechE, BIMS is not only responsible for the 100 or so personnel within the institution, but also has a responsibility and passion for supporting the engineering profession as a whole. I asked BIMS what the IMechE was doing to ensure employees across the industry could grow their skills and careers and foster diversity within their workforce.
I think we should, but it's not a pat on the back in terms of we've done anything extra. It's because our managers and our trustee board, I have to say, and they've all embraced inclusiveness. We've had some fantastic training through Zing Learning Limited. And I think that's really opened our mind and broadened our minds to be much more open. And I know as engineers, obviously, you have to be risk averse. Sometimes it's a matter of life and death. But actually, it's been wonderful to see how, as you said, there's been innovation there. They've been prepared to embrace something different. And that in itself has generated a difference in a new energy and zeal within the workplace. Well, one of the things I do think is important, Helen, is that we look at the data. The data doesn't lie to us, it explains to us. And like I've said previously, look at what that data is telling us in terms of our diversity and in who we're attracting and maintaining, because it's all linked. The benefits are linked to who we have within the organisation. Do we understand the pool of talent that is out there? We have to have an honest appraisal of, have we engaged with those that are disengaged? Have we engaged with those that are lost and forgotten? And have we engaged with those that we've overlooked in the past? And, there's so many people, we keep saying we want more engineers, but they're all out there waiting for us to come to them. And I think if we see a positive collaboration between employers and the PEIs, we've got thousands of members in each of these PEIs. They are the people that employers want, but we also want those people that are employed in those companies. So it can be a really powerful mutual relationship. So I do think it's important to look at that data, do that gap analysis of where we stand, engage the people that can help. It can't be virtuous signaling. It has to be real steps of action. We've done some huge work there. And as you know, we've, not just with our D&I training, we've got our D&I committee. We've got culture ambassadors now. We've got a new D&I chair. Isabel has done some amazing work for us as now starting our strategy off. But we've got to relook at our roadmap now and see where the roads have changed. And we've evolved. In the time that we started our diversity strategy, we've had a pandemic. People have moved. The way the business works is much more agile. So that has opened up a whole new world of people and how we work. And we've got to reflect to that. We've got to be agile and respond to that. Well, I think there's a number of ways. Obviously, you still got your traditional methods. I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We still have our traditional methods of learning and development. But beyond that, we do have to look at how can we satisfy the needs of everyone in the way they want to learn? People learn, we're embracing the digital world. But it's not always about a digital world. It's also about someone not wanting to get back on the computer, perhaps, when they've already been on it 8 hours in the day. So how can we learn in the different ways? Can we collaborate in different ways? People love focus groups. They love webinars. They love to engage. People want a sense of community. We recently had the Verena Holmes event. What I loved about that event was there was mothers with their babies there and people walking around holding their babies. We are giving women permission to say, I'm a mother, but I'm an engineer and I still want to be ahead. And I think we should, organizations can embrace this very, very easily, and they should. It just takes that matter of making everyone feel welcome and not feel like they're an add-on or, oh, we've just accommodated you in this way or, made this. You don't have to tell me that you've made an adjustment for me. Just make the adjustment and welcome me. But On the other hand, there are other small things we can do. We've recently opened up a prayer and reflection space in the institution. And one of my proudest things, and this was on the back of, some feedback from an employee, could they have that, just a quiet space for a little while to go and pray, in their time. But I also heard a client come in and say, is there a place where I can go and pray? And thankfully, our wonderful reception, Mavanthi, said, yes, I've got this place here. And just being at the desk when that client said that was amazing, because I thought, what a positive attitude they're going to go out with. So sometimes it's a small adjustment, but we don't have to shout about the adjustment. Look what we have done for you. We just need to do it. I think if we can recognise the relevance of all of our membership, not just certain parts of it. And, we often have the talks about, is it only of a particular demographic or not? And that's not necessarily a conversation for today, but it's about recognising the relevancy of all. That's what we talk about in engineering, don't we? We say it's got to be relevant. And it is, it's relevant to social influencers. It's relevant to how we sustain our environment. So we need to have a language for everyone that engages everybody.
As your business evolves, transforms and reimagines its future, how will you usher in new ways of working, thinking and motivating that will create value for years and decades to come? Being able to attract and retain your workforce is a multifaceted challenge that requires both a strategic and inclusive approach. By offering competitive compensation and benefits, investing in training and development, fostering a positive workplace culture, and providing opportunities for advancement, can create an environment that not only attracts top talent, but also keeps them engaged and committed to your organisation. Why not share your experiences of talent retention and attraction with us? We would love to hear how you or your business has addressed some of the topics discussed in this podcast. So email us at podcast@IMechE.org. You've been listening to Impulse to Innovation, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers podcast. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. So if you'd like to share any news or any feedback with us, then please email us podcast@IMechE.org. All the information on this episode can be found in the episode notes.